So when I first started working out 10 years ago, I wish there was a video that just set everything straight, cut through all the BS, and just told me straight up, here's what you need to do to build muscle and build an aesthetic physique. So I figured, well, since it's been 10 years since I've been consistently lifting, why not I make that video myself? So here are the 10 biggest lessons I learned after lifting for 10 years, so you can avoid wasting time, see better results, or at the very least, get some reassurance that what you're currently doing right now is worth it. Let's get into it. Now, I basically ordered these 10 lessons chronologically throughout my fitness journey. So naturally, it's gonna start at pretty more beginner topics, and then by the end, it's gonna cover more advanced ones. So with that said, let's get right into it. Lesson number 1, everything you need to know about lifting, building muscle, and dieting is on the internet for free. So I think we are all super blessed to be living in this era where information is so accessible. When I first started out, I didn't have an older brother to give me guidance in the gym. My parents didn't really even support me lifting. I was pretty much by myself, but luckily back in 2015, there was already a good amount of information completely for free on YouTube, bodybuilding.com, and I just scoured across the internet. Now, admittedly, back in 2015, the information wasn't as good as it is today. So I basically brute forced my way through trial and error and taught myself how to lift in those early days. Fast forward till now, the information is much better. And I guess my overall ethos behind this lesson is, hey, if you can't afford a trainer, if you can't afford to hire a coach, you can still make progress in the gym and teach yourself how to work out and everything you need to know about dieting. You just need to be consistent, have a long-term outlook, and kind of treat it like the stock market, right? Time in the market is more important than timing the market. In this case, you just gotta start your fitness journey and just keep on learning and never give up. Now, with that said, I'm not trying to downplay the value that a trainer or a coach can provide, because ultimately, the way I look at things, a coach is there to fast track the learning process of getting to your fitness goals. Or honestly, for some, let's be honest, quite literally take the thinking away from working out so you can just follow the plan and not worry about, oh, is this actually accurate or not? Like, I don't know if it's actually gonna work. And basically just advise you on how to do things safely and in a way that's gonna be more efficient for your time. At least that's what I try to do. By the way, if you like this tank top I'm wearing, it is from my clothing sponsor, Able. You can check them out. They make high quality gym wear at a pretty affordable price. I like to think of it as the quality of Alphalete at the price point of Gymshark. Of course, you can use code PATH to get 10% off everything at Able. It is an amazing way to support my page and is much appreciated. Otherwise, I just ask that you like this video. That is a great free way to support my page. Let's get on lesson 2. Lesson number 2, you do not need to track macros or calories in order to make progress. Now, I have an admission to y'all, guys. I hate tracking macros. In fact, I went my first few years without ever tracking a single calorie. Instead, I just prioritized lean sources of protein and ate vegetables because the doctor said it was healthy. In those early days, I also pretty much cut out all junk food. I stopped eating chips, I stopped drinking soda. Instead, I would substitute it for fruit because, I have a sweet tooth and fruit tastes good. I also found ways to make healthier versions of the foods I already like eating. For example, I'm ethnically Thai. Thai basil pork is like a really good dish that I think everyone needs to try, but instead of using ground pork, I substituted it for 99% lean turkey. And after lifting consistently for roughly 2 years, this is how I looked. Hey, not too bad for never tracking a single calorie. Now, I eventually got around to tracking my calories and macros in college when, I had limitless access of free food through the dining hall. After doing that for cumulatively probably a little bit less than a year, I started noticing, okay, from then on, I could start roughly eyeballing the estimated amount of calories in a meal with probably like a 10 to 15% margin of error. But the point is, you can go a very long way just prioritizing lean sources of protein and high fiber foods such as vegetables, fruits, starchy carbs like sweet potatoes and some whole grains, while also limiting or cutting out, ideally, junk foods and soda. And the way I see it, the advantage of tracking calories and macros is 1, it's more precise, and 2, it allows you to be able to incorporate some junk food, some soda and unhealthy stuff while technically still staying within your macro goals. And please don't take this as I'm telling you that you shouldn't be tracking your calories if you already are. If you love doing that, then go for it. It is ultimately better. Lesson number 3 is you do not need to bulk in order to build muscle. I definitely am gonna be stirring up the pot on this one. Now, when I first started lifting, I was 115 pounds and I had 2 main goals. 1, build muscle, and 2, stay lean. But basically everyone back then told me that I needed to bulk in order to build muscle. I needed to put on size. I guess some things literally never change. So my 16-year-old self Googled bulking and I'm like, wait, I'm gonna be gaining fat if I do this. So, nah, I'm good. Now at the time, main gaining wasn't even a term yet, but I saw all the athletes I looked up to that had a lean physique that I wanted, and I'm like, okay, it doesn't look like they're changing their body composition all that much throughout the off season. So in my head, I'm like, okay, it is still possible to build muscle without bulking. So I basically focused on lifting consistently, training hard, eating healthier and higher protein, and then just, I hope that I build muscle. Now, I was pretty rational. I knew my strength progress wasn't gonna be as fast as someone who's bulking, but to me, I didn't really care. I approached fitness with a very long-term outlook and horizon. And I thought to myself, hey man, it doesn't really matter when I get to my fitness goals, as long as I eventually get there. Because at the end of the day, even if I'm at my fitness goals, I'm still gonna need to continue to do this in order to actually maintain it. So for me, I had conviction in what my goals were. I just did that for years and it paid off. I think it's cool that today you have terms like main gaining, body recomping, and a lot more scientific literature on the topic supporting these alternatives to the typical bodybuilding, bulking, cutting cycle. Because at the time for me, I literally just made an educated guess that, okay, I'm just gonna eat healthy and then work out consistently and I should be building some muscle and theoretically I won't gain fat. And honestly, to me, it just seemed a lot more sustainable to eat relatively healthy and not have to worry about fluctuating my diet throughout the year with a bulk and cut. And boy, am I happy that the fitness industry is finally normalizing what I've been doing my entire fitness journey. It's great to see. But anyways, if you're looking for more personal guidance on getting to your fitness goals, no matter what your situation is and actually approaching it in a sustainable way, I recommend you apply to my exclusive one-on-one fitness coaching program because me and my team can literally help you do just that. Link in the description. Lesson number 4 is there's no exercise you need to do. Now I remember my first 2 to 3 years of lifting, there's one exercise that everyone said was so important to do if you're trying to grow your back, and that was the barbell bent over row. But here's me, 2 years into lifting, already having a lower back injury from deadlifting improperly, and I was like, dude, thought of bent over barbell rows just it didn't sound that interesting to me. And I also thought with the bent over barbell row, my lower back would get tired before my lats or my traps, the muscles that I'm actually trying to train. So instead of doing that movement, even though everyone told me to do so, I stuck to other exercises where my lower back wouldn't be as much of a limiting factor. Namely the chest supported T-bar row, which was my favorite row variation. And at the end of the day, I was still able to make pretty solid progress. This situation made me realize that there's really no exercise you need to do. And in some cases, there's some movement patterns that even if you don't do it, you're still gonna probably be able to train that muscle on a completely different movement pattern, making that movement pattern really not necessary. Lesson number 5, the pump does not matter for muscle growth. Now getting to the more intermediate topics I learned roughly 4 to 5 years into my fitness journey, but compared to lesson number 3, this one I was actually wrong. Now in my first 4 years of working out, I pretty much tried every single workout split out there. I tried a bro split, I tried PPL, I tried upper lower, and the one I ultimately stuck to was a modified Arnold split. I basically did chest and back on one day, then I would do cardio, and then it would be shoulders, and then arms, legs, and I would do the split rolling. Meaning on that 6th day, I went back to chest and back and just cycled through without any breaks in between. Now that split is essentially a bro split. So on each day, I would do roughly 3 to 4 exercises for the same muscle group. And I'd get this cool pump, and I think by the end of it, I'm like, oh man, this is it. This is what you need to build muscle, when I cracked the code. But I realized after doing that split for like 2.5 years, I barely made any progress, especially on those later exercises in the workout. And then one day, I was barbell bench pressing, and then the second exercise was incline dumbbell bench press, and I really wanted to increase my incline dumbbell bench press. And I thought to myself, man, I feel like I would be able to make more progress on incline dumbbell bench press if I didn't do barbell bench press right before. So then I was like, what if I put incline dumbbell bench press on a completely different day, make that the first exercise of the day? I bet then I'd be able to make progress on both. I'm like, if I'm making progress on progressive overloading, meaning I'm able to push myself harder, and that should lead to more muscle growth. And then I realized by that logic, that goes for pretty much every other muscle group as well. So instead of doing all my exercises for that one muscle group in one day, I'm like, if I spread it across multiple days, I'll be able to make progress on those later exercises. And theoretically, that should be more beneficial for hypertrophy compared to if I just did everything on the one day and, junk volume by the end of the workout. And that's when I made a switch back to an upper lower split and finally started seeing strength progress again. But only this time, I was 4 to 5 years into my fitness journey. And then, by the way, just so you guys are familiar with the timeline, a year after that, I started posting on TikTok, and I made this exact video talking about my opinion of the upper lower split and why I thought it was such a good workout split compared to the other ones. Lesson number 6 is supplements are not necessary. Now, this is coming from someone who is literally sponsored by a supplement company. There's no supplement that you actually need to take in order to build muscle. It is ultimately optional, and anyone who's telling you otherwise is literally probably just trying to make money off you. Now, that is not to say that they are not helpful, because some of them definitely are, but I went 8 years without ever taking creatine and made super solid progress. This is how I looked roughly, before taking creatine. And the reason why I hammer this idea so much is a lot of my clients and just people that ask me for fitness advice, they always ask me about supplements. Like, oh, what should you take? They talk about supplements like it is the end all be all of getting to your fitness goals, but it is not. So here's what I recommend when it comes to supplements. Number 1, don't even think about taking supplements until you're actually consistently working out. Number 2, use protein powder as a convenient source of protein that actually tastes good, so it can also double as a substitute to sweets, or as an insurance if you're not tracking calories. So at least you're getting an additional 20 to 25 grams of protein in a very calorically efficient way. And protein naturally makes you feel more fuller, so if you care to lose any body fat, protein powder for that very reason, as well as the one I mentioned before on it being a good substitute to sweets, can definitely be helpful. And then number 3, creatine will improve muscular endurance for most of you guys watching. However, that doesn't mean you can't see strength progress without it. And a bonus 4th one is the more expensive or fancy a supplement is, not necessarily the better. In my opinion, I think getting just a cost-efficient protein powder that you think tastes really good, as well as just plain creatine monohydrate, you don't need anything fancy. And not gonna lie, I got reached out from other supplement companies, but ultimately I decided to partner with MyProtein because of this very reason. They're pretty affordable. I actually have been taking them since high school. So honestly, it's a pretty full circle moment that I get a code with them now. Damn, that's crazy. Right, anyways, you can use code TYLRPath to get a pretty hefty discount at MyProtein. It is also, of course, another way you can support my page. But of course, no pressure. I still love all of y'all. Lesson number 7 is overtraining is real. Now, getting to the more advanced topics, back in 2022, I noticed there was a big push from a traditionally high volume workout split to a more minimalistic, lower volume, but super high intensity, go to failure on both sets type of split. So I took the plunge. I followed my normal routine, but I cut my working sets down to 2 sets, took both of them to failure. And then for the next 8 to 12 months, it worked until it didn't. And this is what I ultimately realized. It wasn't that 2 sets to failure was definitively better, but it was just that back in 2022, if you were an experienced lifter, pretty much I and everyone else was doing a more high volume bodybuilding style workout routine where a lot of people would do drop sets, intensity techniques, just very pump style bodybuilding type of work. And that just seemed to be the generally accepted norm. But then they switched over to this lower volume, every single set to failure style training, started seeing progress, and everyone was like, dang man, this gotta work. But ultimately, it just came down to the fact that their body was likely just fatigued from the years of doing that high volume training before. And while it worked for the short to mid-term, you had super neurotic people like me who went balls to the walls, went super high intensity, took every single set to failure on every single exercise while still training over 5 times per week. So then now, instead of overtraining via too much volume, we started overtraining via too high of an intensity all the time. Now the big takeaway from this is ultimately, if you're trying to minimize injuries and still make progress in your mid to late game, you need to be periodizing your training, which in layman terms basically means every so often do a deload week where you're not training as hard, or change your workout split from something super high intensity and probably lower volume to something a little bit higher volume, but you're not really training to failure as much. Instead, you're leaving a little bit more reps in reserve. And by switching up the volume and intensity every so often, it helps you better manage fatigue. Lesson number 8 is understanding a little bit of biomechanics as well as resistance profile. It's probably gonna be more helpful than just maximizing the stretch. So last year, there was this really big trend that the stretch was the most important aspect in the exercise selection because of things like stretch mediated hypertrophy. And this kind of created this weird little bubble where people were starting to do exercises that would maximize the stretch on the muscle at the cost of other stuff that's important for muscle growth, such as stability of the exercise, leverage, and everything was literally just about, oh, getting a stretch on the muscle. And turns out, not every muscle actually benefits from stretch-mediated hypertrophy. Furthermore, some of these exercises that allow you to get a better stretch on the target muscle, let's say getting your arms well overhead to stretch your lats, disregard the fact that some exercises might actually interfere with the main target muscle because it gets more leverage in that more stretched part of the range of motion. So for example, let's say you take a lat pullover exercise. You can better stretch the lats by getting your arm well overhead like this, but this fails to consider the fact that the lats lose leverage to do the act of shoulder extension, which is this lat pullover movement, and roughly above 120 degrees, meaning this is the part that the lats have leverage to do shoulder extension, but anything above it is where the lower chest and the triceps would tend to take over. So the main takeaway from this is the stretch is not the only thing you should be thinking about when you're choosing exercise. Lesson number 9 is majority of people nowadays will benefit more from losing body fat and building muscle rather than trying to maximize building muscle. Now, excluding the elderly, skinny people, and let's add teenagers that are not overweight, majority of people, if they want to build an aesthetic physique, probably have some fat to lose. And I think this is something that most people will agree. But to go even further, after coaching hundreds of people at this point and hearing the comment, I'm trying to get that toned look, I want to look lean, but I don't want to look too big, it made me realize, like, man, if that is your goal, majority of you should focus more on body recomping and losing body fat rather than trying to bulk. And of course, that does not mean that you shouldn't be weight training. It's actually quite the opposite. You should continue to lift consistently and train hard, but from the dieting perspective, you're probably better served being in a calorie deficit and potentially body recomping versus trying to bulk. And yeah, sure, you're gonna be getting a lot stronger really quicker, but like I mentioned before, if you have any fat loss to lose, well, you're kind of going the other direction in that case. And finally, lesson number 10, having a nice physique is not gonna fix your life. What it can do is help you build inner confidence to live a better life, but I won't even say it's 100% the physique that's causing that either. In my opinion, it's more about the actions. You're proving to yourself that you can be a disciplined person that shows up on a consistent basis, is holding yourself accountable, and because you now know that you can work hard and do these things, well, that's kind of like the transferable skill of having an aesthetic physique. Because honestly, people, fitness shouldn't be your entire life. Instead, you want to use that same energy and that discipline and that drive that you ultimately develop from weight training into other important aspects of your life, whether it be career or relationships. And these are the exact transferable skills I used when I was studying in college and clutching a 4.0 major GPA, when I was preparing and studying for my case interview at a consulting company despite not having any consulting experience or not even being in a business frat or a consulting organization at my college. I pretty much just outstudied and outprepared all my peers. And guess what? Who still ended up landing that job at Deloitte?
Yep, that's me.
And most importantly, the discipline, work ethic, and long-term outlook that I developed from my fitness journey, I applied with social media. And it's all out there for you guys to see. I've been uploading 3 videos per day for nearly every single day for the past 5 years. That is half a decade. Weekly uploads on YouTube for the past 2 years now. All the while running my coaching business, of course, taking care of brand deals, taking care of my financial future and kind of planning out what retirement will look like for my parents, all this stuff. People, the biggest lesson I learned after 10 years of lifting is do everything in your power to actually make it to the 10-year mark. And you'll be surprised at how far you've actually come. Good luck.